these programmable logic controller authoring machines, is it is understood that security is a concern. So they are never directly connected to the internet. So the designers of Stuxnet understood that they were not going to infect the machine. But think about it. As a consequence of not being connected to the internet, you have to get data in and out of them. So it's thumb drives, which is it's the infection vector.
Right.
If you're going to have a standalone machine because you're worried about security, well, you're going to use thumb drives. And so a lot of attention in Stuxnet is paid to infecting removable drives, protecting their contents, keeping the contents invisible, and it is believed that essentially that strategy is what worked. That machines that were connected to the internet got infected with Stuxnet, and then in the normal course of transferring data, updating files, here you've got this machine running your nuclear enrichment facility, and you're all proud of yourself that it's not on the internet, so nothing can get to it. Yet, there's a new version of the PLC software. So you download it over on this machine.
Oh, boy.
Load it onto your thumb drive, and then bring it over to the not on the internet PLC, Iranian enrichment plant controlling computer, and bang, that gets it infected.
Wow.
When Stuxnet arrives in a new machine, and I have written down here somewhere the domains that it queried.
I should look. I have your notes.
Here it is. It's my premier football, FUTBOL.com. So www.mypremierfootball, spelled FUTBOL.com, and www.todaysfootball, FUTBOL.com, are two servers which originally pointed into Malaysia and Denmark. When the worm was able to get itself installed, it would look up the IPs of those DNS domains and send a package of sort of status, including its log of its entire history of infection. It had a timestamp, information about the OS version, and additional information, and that log. So over the time that Stuxnet was known about, Symantec was able to collect over 3,280 unique samples, individual instances of Stuxnet, each with a different log, because each log tracked that, basically the lineage, all the ancestral versions. As it had infected one machine after another, it kept appending to this log. What they know as a consequence of being able to mine these logs of those 3,280 different instances of Stuxnet is that there were 3 events targeting exactly 5 organizations, each having a presence within Iran. From those 3 events targeting 5 organizations, 12,000 infections can be traced back to exactly those 5 organizations. So basically, and we don't know how Stuxnet was planted in those organizations. Could have been a conspirator, could have been, emailed in, somehow they got within those organizations. The first organization, and they've remained anonymous in this report, was targeted twice, in June 2009 and then again in April 2010. The second organization was targeted 3 times, in that June 2009 attack, the second one in March of 2010, and then in May of 2010. The third one was targeted once, the third organization targeted once in July of 2009, as was the fourth organization. And the fifth one was targeted once in May of 2009, and then, and I said, but had 3 initial infections, because the same initially infected USB drive was inserted into 3 different PCs. Oh yeah, so there were like, it was targeted once, but it was like salted in 3 different locations within that organization. And so Symantec was able to track back all the way back to those, you know, very original 3 instances within that fifth organization. The shortest span of time between the compilation of Stuxnet, where it was, you know, literally its source code was compiled, which inherently binds some date information into the code, to an initial infection was 12 hours. So this thing was built, and in at least one case, within 12 hours, an infection was planted. The longest span between compilation time and infection was 28 days, and the average was 19. So this whole thing took place in the latter half of 2009 and the beginning of 2010. And so they know from, again, looking at these logs, that there were 3 attack waves. Essentially June 22nd in 2009, March 1st in 2010, and April 14th in 2010. And Stuxnet was getting better. The March 1st attack had than the June one. So if you could sort of put yourself in the mindset of the people who were doing this, who designed this, they had a goal, and they had a system which was providing them feedback. And so that was a mixed blessing, because obviously Symantec is able to determine everything they have because of the feedback which the worm provided to its command and control servers every time it propagated. But you could see also that while it was unknown, before it became known, this was vital information for the designers, because it allowed them to profile the performance of this weapon they had written in the wild. And they were, you know, these were spear attacks. I mean, they were somehow sending agents into Iran or into affiliated companies and planting Stuxnet there. We know that because of the dispersion of the virus. Of all infections of Stuxnet globally, 58.31 were in Iran. 58.31%. Sorry, 58.31%.
That's pretty effective.
So yeah, like
good job.
Nearly 60% were in Iran. So, but that's just machines infected. So that means, you know, it wasn't released in Santa Clara and, you know, all went there, because all the machines between here and Santa Clara would be infected. I mean, so the point is that it started there somehow. Somehow it was planted in that location, like you know, near to its goal, and then spread locally. And of course, due to the fact that it was a worm and used unpatched but known vulnerabilities of Windows, it did get loose. Yet, as I said, the weaponized end, thank goodness, was so tightly targeted that it didn't do damage to all the other Siemens systems that it sought out and did infect. 18% in Indonesia and 10% in India, and then it fell off. And also, the Siemens Step 7 system that I mentioned, of the infections, 67.6% of the Iranian infections had Step 7 software installed. So it was, again, it was seeking out and looking for these process control-based systems. 8.1% in South Korea of the infections had Step 7 installed, 5% in the USA, and 2.18 in the UK. So, you know, it did, for example, in the US, 5% of the infections of Stuxnet were Siemens-based systems. So it was infecting US-based process control systems, and the good news is, you know, the floodgates of Hoover Dam didn't get opened as a consequence. So,
well, I think it's really clear that. So, well, I think it's really clear that. Well, we know. In fact, I think we know who did this now because there have been some revelations. But I think it's pretty clear that they were heavily targeting.
Yeah. Well, and this evidence,
and effectively.
I mean, and see, and what I guess what I find so interesting is that if you really take advantage of the information coming back to you, you can, you know, as you said, Leo, this is a plot. I mean, we can work out what had to happen in order for this result. I mean, you know, in order for the drivers to be signed with good driver certificates from two innocent companies, somebody had to go and break into them and get their private keys in order to sign the drivers. Stuxnet, the virus, is aware of Kaspersky KAV version 6 through 9, the current McAfee products, Antivir, Bitdefender, eTrust, F-Secure, Symantec and Symantec Common Client, ESETS, Nod32, and Trends PC-Cillin. It has code in it to specifically see that those products are in the system. And remember, one of its priorities is stealth. It very much wanted to get its work done before it was being found. So what it did was it would look in the system to see if these things were present, and if so, it would look at the exes to determine the versions and had version-specific behavior. So it was designed to go underneath the detection. And in several cases, it did that by using either one of two, because it ran on all versions of Windows XP through Win 7, not earlier than XP. It used vulnerabilities that had never been published for getting admin privileges if it was not running with admin privilege, and use those in order to play some kernel level hook games in order to install itself into processes in a way that specifically would not be detected by these intrusion detection systems that were designed to detect exactly this behavior. The rootkit that it installed, even with these tools, with these AV systems in place, it was able to install a rootkit robustly and reliably, and filter the API calls that Windows was making to the kernel, such that if a file with a .lnk extension was going to be enumerated in a directory search, and the file was 4,171 bytes long, the rootkit would just remove that from the listing, because the malicious